6 of the world's most advanced strategic bombers, all from the USA and Russia. The 3 American models are the B-52, B-1, and B-2. Russia's are the Tu-95, Tu-22M, and Tu-160. Today, we'll learn more about the 6 highest-level strategic bombers of humanity. Let's begin with Russia. Tu-95 Strategique Bombe. This is the only large propeller aircraft in the world. Strategic bomber. Besides its long-range bombing mission, it can also conduct electronic reconnaissance, reconnaissance photography, maritime patrol, and other missions. Tsar Bomba is the most powerful nuclear bomb in human history. Dropped by the Tu-95. The Tu-95 entered service in 1956. Its maximum takeoff weight is 188 tons, speed of Mach 0.7, payload of 25 tons, range of over 16,000 kilometers. It can fly continuously for about 10 hours. The highest flight record is 34 hours. Since the 1950s, the Soviet Union produced over 500 units. Ukraine received about 70 units. The Tu-95 originally belonged to the Soviet Air Force, but now all have been destroyed. At least 55 remain in service with the Russian Air Force. The Tu-95 is similar to the B-52 bomber of the U.S. Air Force. Hard to replace. This Cold War airborne monster, continually upgraded. It could last until 2040. Tu-22M Bombe, codenamed Backfire C, supersonic strategic bomber. Unlike other strategic bombers, the Tu-22M was designed to target U.S. aircraft carriers, and one of the targets of the carrier battle group. Cold War. Quite a few Tu-20M units were assigned to the Soviet Navy. The Tu-22M bomber mainly carries Kh-22 supersonic missiles, anti-ship missiles, based on information from other sources, to attack U.S. carrier battle groups. The KSR-2 is a conventional warhead weighing 750 kilograms, or 350,000 tons, a heavy anti-ship missile with a nuclear warhead equivalent to TNT. If carrying a tactical nuclear warhead, the KSR-2 would be enough to destroy an entire carrier battle group. The Tu-20M entered service in 1976. Its maximum takeoff weight is 126 tons, speed of Mach 1.42. Payload capacity is 25 tons. Range is 12,000 kilometers. After the Soviet collapse from 1969 to 1993, due to complex repairs, Russia's economic difficulties, about 500 units were produced. Production ended in 1993. The Russian Air Force still operates around 114 Tu-22M aircraft. Tu-160 Bombe, nickname White Swan, regarded as the strongest in the world. One of the 2 largest strategic bombers in the world. The heaviest and fastest strategic bomber. It can fly at 12,000 kilometers altitude, achieving Mach 2.05. It has surpassed conventional supersonic fighter aircraft. Tu-160 has flown over the U.S. many times with 35 fighter jets. A journey of over 16,000 kilometers, taking off from the Russian Far East. It can fly directly to the U.S. East Coast, without in-flight refueling, devastating Washington and New York. Tu-160 has a payload of up to 45 tons. It can carry 12 Tomahawk missiles. Today, Tomahawk is an air-launched cruise missile with a range of 3,000 kilometers. The warhead carries 200,000 tons of nuclear warheads. Tu-160 has a combat radius of 7,300 kilometers. It can remain outside the enemy's air defense network for thousands of km, engaging from a long distance. Tu-160 entered service in 1987. Maximum takeoff weight is 275 tons. Currently, Russia has 16 units. According to the Russian military's public report, Russia plans to upgrade its 16 Tu-160s and produce an additional 10. These are the 3 strategic bombers of Russia. Next, we have the 3 strategic bombers of the U.S. The B-52 bomber, codenamed Stratofortress. It is the oldest strategic bomber in the world. It entered service in 1955, an antique, serving for 66 years. It is the main strategic bomber of the U.S. Air Force. A total of 744 units were produced. Currently, 76 are still in service. The U.S. Air Force plans to keep the B-52 in service until 2050. This shows how much the U.S. values it. The B-52's maximum takeoff weight is 220 tons. Speed, Mach 0.81. Maximum range is 16,000 kilometers. Payload, 31 tons. Combat radius is 7,210 kilometers. Its sound can reach the stratosphere. This is the origin of the codename Stratofortress. The B-52 is one of the 3 U.S. strategic bombers, carrying out the highest missions. With the most combat missions, it is a long journey. It can stay high up, carrying out strategic bombing missions under high pressure. It was equipped with the first U.S. ground-to-air cruise missile, the AGM-28 full cruise missile. It is the only U.S. strategic bomber that can launch cruise missiles. That's why the U.S. will continue to use it until 2050. The B-1 bomber, codenamed Lancer. Among the U.S. strategic bombers, it is the only one that can fly supersonic. The main mission of the B-1 is to exploit its ability to penetrate extremely low altitudes, breaking through and tearing apart the enemy's air defense grid. The B-1 participated in the U.S. Air Force's attack on Iraq in 1998. It was its first combat deployment, codenamed Desert Fox. In this mission, each B-1 was armed with 30 tons of -82 Malawian Quachas bombs. Later in the U.S., during the military campaign against the Taliban in Afghanistan, the B-1 carried out only 5% of the total U.S. aircraft missions. Yet, nearly 40% of the munitions were used. The B-1 was ambushed in 1985. Maximum takeoff weight, 216 tons. Maximum speed, Mach 1.25. Maximum range, 12,000 kilometers. Weapon capacity, 34 tons externally, 27 tons internally. Combat radius, 5,544 kilometers. There are currently 62 B-1 aircraft. However, due to the significant airframe losses of the B-1, the maintenance cost is too high. The U.S. Air Force plans to retire 17 B-1 bomber fleets, reducing the current B-1 fleet to 45 aircraft. The remaining B-1 fleets will remain operational. By 2040, there will be more than 2 bombers in the world, one of the most powerful bombers. This is also the only bomber in the world with stealth capabilities. Its production cost is up to $2.4 billion US. Even in wealthy America, only 21 units were produced. 2 are currently out of service due to operational issues. Currently, there are 19 B-2 bombers in operation. The B-2 typically flies for no less than 10 hours per mission. The U.S. Air Force states that the B-2 has global reach and destruction capabilities. The B-2 bomber became operational in 1997. Its maximum takeoff weight is 170 tons. Its maximum speed is Mach 0.95. Its maximum range is 11,000 kilometers. Its payload is 22 tons. During the Iraq War, 6 B-2 bombers were sent to command bombings in Iraq. They targeted communication controls and other military facilities, rendering Saddam Hussein's government powerless because radar couldn't detect it. ISIS, the new strategic military thought behind the H-6 bomber, shocked the world. In recent years, news about the H-6 has garnered a lot of attention. Although its capabilities are not fully known, I believe it is definitely not inferior to those of the US and Russia. The presence of the H-6 strategic bomber gives people more trust in Chinese engineers and less doubt. West Africa will certainly resemble Changfei, providing satisfactory answers. Thank you.